I'm Rachel Herman, and in this episode, we're getting an inside look at the Artemis program.
4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis I.
The launch of Artemis I was a culmination of the work of thousands of individuals on the Space Launch System, the Orion spacecraft, and the ground systems here at the Kennedy Space Center. It is a new beginning for discovery, for our country, for our species.
There's an immense amount of science to be learned in exploring the lunar vicinity and the lunar surface in a much more vast area than we did on Apollo.
And the Artemis II crew is really that next step to put crew on board the spacecraft and get it headed toward the moon.
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This is our first step.
This one's gonna be cool. It's time to go behind the wings. NASA's Artemis program will return humans to the moon for the first time since Apollo 17. This time, beyond flags and footprints, the goal is to build a sustained presence on the moon and prepare for missions to Mars. Making that possible is a suite of new technologies, including spacesuits, rockets, landers, orbiters, and spacecraft. At NASA's Johnson Space Center, Orion Deputy Program Manager Debbie Korth is helping build Orion, the spacecraft that will carry astronauts back to the moon on Artemis II.
While we have a suite of vehicles that can go to International Space Station and do some low Earth orbit kind of activities, Orion's unique in that it's the only spacecraft that can go to deep space. It's made up of 3 main components. So what you're seeing behind us here is the crew module. This is the only piece that comes back after our missions, but there's actually 2 other pieces that are very vital to the spacecraft. There's the service module, which actually is attached to the bottom of the crew module. It provides all of the power, propulsion, propellants, most of the attitude maneuvers that we do during a mission are done with the service module. It's built by our European partners across 10 different countries in Europe. And then on top, when you look at pictures of Orion, you'll see a tall, pointy structure. That's called our launch abort system. So that is designed primarily for if there's an emergency either before we launch, while we're on the launch pad, or during that ascent phase. That launch abort system actually takes this crew module with the crew inside and flies it away from the emergency. So we get rid of the launch abort system about 2 minutes into flight. So we know we don't need it after that point, but it's very vital.
Human Factors Manager Cynthia Huddy focuses on how astronauts live and work inside Orion.
As a human systems integration person with Lockheed Martin, one of the biggest things I do is work on the interior design of the Orion capsule. And so we have to look at things like how are you going to fit 4 crew members sleeping? How are you going to fit 4 crew members having to take turns exercising? Where are they going to eat? How do they make sure they have space to get into the bathroom area? And we also have to design for what we call a 1st percentile female to a 99th percentile male. The Orion cabin is about 353 cubic feet. That includes the bathroom. And so it really is like a tiny house. The seats that the crew is in for launch and landing can be taken apart on orbit, giving the crew more space inside the cabin. A lot of the stuff is in the stowage, which is on the quote unquote floor of the cabin, but they can pull out a cargo net to stow stuff behind. They take their suits off, they pull out the food warmer and they, stick that on the wall and they're able to, access that near the potable water dispenser. So that's their galley area, which funny enough is far away from the bathroom as possible. And in this case, it's only about 6 or 8 feet, but it's still as far away as possible. We're very excited for the successful Artemis I launch, but now we're looking forward to Artemis II. They will get to test out all these new systems. They will get to test out the displays and controls. Any kind of daily living activities will be tested out on this flight.
In addition to the spacecraft, we have our Space Launch System, which is the big rocket that we launch on.
The Space Launch System is made up of powerful core engines, twin solid rocket boosters, and an upper stage designed to send Orion beyond Earth's orbit.
To launch a rocket, there's a lot of complicated parts that have to come together to work perfectly to make it happen.
The Space Launch System lifts off using 2 powerful solid rocket boosters and 4 main engines on its core stage.
And once that launches, that's when ICPS gets to take over in space to get Orion to the moon. ICPS is the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. It's the 2nd stage on the Space Launch System. When you see it on the rocket, it just looks like one big stage altogether, but as you can see here, it's actually broken up into several components. You can see the liquid oxygen tank, the liquid hydrogen tank, and of course those are the fuels that mix together to ignite the engine. ICPS has 2 engine burns, one when it separates from the core stage and another one later on to get Orion into the higher Earth orbit it needs to make it to the moon.
After the solid rocket boosters and core stage fall away, Orion continues into space atop SLS's upper stage before separating to fly the rest of its mission. It will fly a wide loop around the moon called a free return trajectory, traveling farther from Earth than any human mission before, while testing navigation, life support, communication systems before heading back for re-entry.
We have testing and processing that we need to complete here in this facility. Once we're done, we will hand it over to NASA, and we will actually go over there and collaborate with them on their testing and even do some testing there ourselves. So we work in cooperation with them all the way up until launch. And once we're done processing it here, it will integrate with the first stage. We'll go out to the launch pad, and every group has to come together, work together to make it happen.
At NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Exploration Ground Systems brings every piece, rocket, spacecraft, and crew, together preparing Artemis II for launch.
This is the place where our species first departed the shores of our home planet. We launched our American astronauts on the Saturn V launch vehicle during the Apollo program. And they first walked on the surface of another celestial body, and they departed right here at the Kennedy Space Center. And since that time, we've continued to do incredible things. The Kennedy Space Center is an amazing place right now. It's never been busier. We're responsible for preparing, integrating, and launching the Space Launch System and the Orion spacecraft for the Artemis program. Wet dress rehearsals where we actually fill up the fuel tanks on board the Space Launch System. And we check out all of the ground systems that provide the cryogenic fuels to the launch vehicle. And we check out the launch vehicle itself as well. It's an important test in getting to that launch.
Building the hardware is only part of the mission. Now astronauts train to operate it, preparing their bodies and minds for the journey to the moon.
We are in the Orion Mission Simulator. This is one of a couple of key training facilities that we'll use to train the Orion crew members. So for Artemis II, we'll train the Artemis II crew, and for future missions, the launching and flying an Orion piece of their training will happen here. Instead of talking in an ambiguous, well, the crew will someday need this training, to have actual names and faces, it just makes it so much more exciting and real to anticipate getting into the classroom or the simulator or the mock-up with them and get them started on this journey. I was fortunate enough to be in the room when they made that announcement, and it was incredible. They had almost everyone from the astronaut office present, and to see those folks get called out from that group as those 4 walked on stage, I thought, man, what an honor to get to train these.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Artemis II crew. Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Hammond, Jeremy Hansen.
We are super excited to have the Artemis II crew named, because now we've been doing all this development and we have crew members come over and help us. But now to have the Artemis II crew be able to come and put their stamp on it, and we'll be able to get their feedback and help with that, is just, I think, super excited for all of us that are working on Orion to actually see the crew use the vehicle.
A lot of things have changed in 50 years in terms of both what we know about the moon, what our experiences were on Apollo, and in terms of technology and what we have the capability to bring with us and equip the crew with. We will have new lunar spacesuits. We will have very different innovative types of landers. The types of tools and experiments that we may have on the lunar surface are all going to be informed by the science that's been done since Apollo and since then. Our whole goal in training is to make sure that at the end of everything they're doing, that they and the ground teams are prepared to fly the mission successfully.
Getting to the moon is just the beginning. Future Artemis missions will focus on the lunar infrastructure needed to live and work in space.
Traveling to the moon in the Artemis program will enable new discoveries. We may build a lunar base on the South Pole. The lunar South Pole is interesting. It has permanently shadowed areas where we think there's water ice there. If there's water ice there, it changes the logistics equation on how we live on the moon. We might make our own drinking water. We might make our own rocket fuel and our breathing air. We might turn the rocks, and then we call it lunar regolith, into structures, launch pads. We're going to learn things that we can't even anticipate by sending our astronaut crews back to the moon to stay, to live, to learn, and eventually it'll give us the knowledge and information we need to go to Mars.
The Apollo missions were able to explore roughly the equatorial regions, which would equate to about the continent of Africa, and we know how diverse that is. Now, if you compare it to the Earth, the rest of the moon is the rest of the Earth. So we've only explored one of 7 continents and the remainder of the surface area covered of water. So we have a huge amount of the surface of the moon that's left unexplored. In there, you've got craters, which could be hiding water ice. There could be other resources from all the different impacts that are the craters and the pockmarks we lovingly look at the moon each night. So imagine if you've ever been camping or backpacking, right? We take for granted that, yes, I'm carrying things with me, but on the surface of the moon, everything that I need, I have to take with me. I need my air to breathe. I need my food, I need my water, and so think of it as the ultimate camping trip. In-situ resource utilization, which basically means we're using the resources that we find and the sites that we're exploring, is very critical to our future plan. We've got to be able to know what's there and how we can utilize it best, and that reduces how much we need back from Earth. So that includes water from water ice, it includes propellants that we can create from breaking down that water ice, and also oxygen that we need to sustain life as we know it. We can dream it. My job is to make sure the architecture is enabled to allow us to do it. So if it's science or if it's a town or a colony, as long as we have the will and the backing that we're able to accomplish that.
From the rocket to the spacecraft to the crew, Artemis is bringing every piece together to return humans to the moon, and this time to stay. We couldn't get to everything in this episode, so leave your comments and questions underneath the video and we'll get to as many as we can. And come visit the museum to check out all of our air and spacecraft. You've reached the end of the video. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. And if you're not, what are you doing? Subscribe already. I gotta get back to work.